Welcome back to Jacoby Rising. This video will be the first video in a 4-part series where I go over what Metroid Prime 4 can learn from the previous Prime games. In today's video, we're going to talk about what the 4th Metroid Prime game can learn from the very first Metroid Prime game. Since Prime 1 was the first game in the trilogy to introduce new things like scanning, I will be talking about that specifically in this video. I will be making a video on what Prime 2 and Prime 3 did right, and finally the trilogy, in terms of the common themes that were present in all 3 games. If you guys enjoyed the video, please remember to give a thumbs up on the video as it does help out the channel a lot, and let me know what you personally loved about the first Metroid Prime game. What Metroid Prime 1 got right was the setting of the game. Metroid Prime has so many locations that are diverse and unique. We have a lava location, the Magmore Cavern. We have an ice location, the Fenrana Drifts. We have a creepy, dark section of the game, the Phazon Mines. Eventually you go to a sunken ship called the Sunken Orphan. We have the Talon Overworld. There are so many locations within Metroid Prime that just stand out, that are just so unique. Not one location is the same from another. Everything in this game is its own. Its range, its assortment, everything in Metroid Prime is its own thing. The art direction for Metroid Prime is fantastic. Let's talk about the wow factor and how Metroid Prime brought Metroid into the first-person 3-dimensional world. So originally we thought Metroid could only really be a 2D game, as it was on the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And Metroid skipped out on the Nintendo 64 generation and then was brought to 3D on the GameCube. Having a company like Retro Studios, an American company, take charge of a Metroid game was unheard of back then. People were very skeptical. They're like, oh, this game's gonna suck. Metroid Fusion was also coming out, and luckily fans were like, oh, well, at least we'll have one good game that's gonna be great. I'm sure the first-person shooter Metroid game's not gonna be that great. Lo and behold, it became one of the best games in the entire universe of gaming. Not only did Retro Studios capture the isolation and loneliness of a Metroid game, but they also captured the exploration of finding secrets and new power-ups and new weapons, shortcuts, new creatures to discover, new creatures to scan. There was so much in this game that was packed into Metroid Prime. This was a game where they could have easily gone the wrong direction and completely screwed up. Luckily for us, that was not the case, and Metroid Prime was exactly what Metroid fans wanted in a completely different perspective. And speaking of perspective, Metroid Prime introduced the idea of scanning. Samus is a bounty hunter. She's really smart. She has a pretty awesome kick-ass power suit that's capable of doing many things, like data logging. And that was something that Metroid Prime introduced into the series, where you could go around and scanning your entire area and finding out more information about where you were, maybe the history behind the location that you were currently in, and possibly scan enemies for weaknesses that you could exploit, and that carried over on how to beat certain larger, more tougher enemies like in the boss battles. We have a thermal visor where you can see heat signatures, and that blended well with the wave beams for certain puzzles that could pass through certain walls. You could see hidden little places to shoot to open up new locations. We had the X-ray visor, and that was really cool to see Samus's skeleton hand in her arm cannon. When debris would fly in your face, you would see her reflection on the screen. If you were underwater, it'd be fuzzy because you're underwater and it's very dense and hard to see down there unless you had the gravity suit. You could hear Samus breathe and respond when she took damage. It wasn't just silence. They really made you feel like you were Samus in that first-person shooter, and that was something that I thought was very breathtaking for Metroid Prime. The last thing that I loved about Metroid Prime was the realism of the game, and what I mean by that is at the very end of the game, when Samus defeats, spoiler, Metroid Prime, we see her take off her helmet, and that was cool because it's like a throwback to the original Metroid where you beat the game and then the person takes off the suit and you think it's a guy, but it ends up being a girl, which was like, oh my god, a big wow moment back in the day. And then we get that kind of same feel at the end of this Metroid Prime, because there was a lot of people like myself where the first Metroid game that I ever played was Metroid Prime. I didn't actually really know that Samus was a girl. She was a woman. I was completely unaware of that. So I looked at the game cover and I see this bounty hunter named Samus, and that could be a guy or a girl name, I'm not really sure. And then I play through the game and then I see Samus at the end being a girl. I'm like, whoa, that is pretty cool. So I like that throwback that they did to the original Metroid for Metroid Prime, how Samus is a girl in the end. But if you look at her face, it looks extremely realistic for a GameCube game. And then if we look at Samus in Prime 2 and Prime 3, it's so much more cartoony, and that's one thing that I don't like what they did with that. I really enjoyed how they showed Samus in a more realistic, mature manner, and then I thought the art direction for her face in Prime 2 and Prime 3 went the wrong direction. I don't think it's a bad direction, but I much prefer the Samus we saw at the end of Prime 1 over the other Samuses we see in Prime 2 and Prime 3. That was my list on what I think Metroid Prime got right. I know I didn't include a lot of things, but let me remind everyone that I will be making an overall video regarding the Metroid Prime trilogy. I wanted to make a video talking about the specific things that were in each game. I know that there is scanning in Prime 2 and Prime 3, but it was introduced in Prime 1, as well as the setting in terms of the amount of diversified locations. So this is my list for Prime 1. Stay tuned for the list for Metroid Prime 2 and the list for Metroid Prime 3, and finally a list regarding a lot of the common themes that were present in all three games. My name is James of JKP Rising. If you guys like this video, once again, be sure to leave a thumbs up. It does help out the video a lot. It helps out the channel. I appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for some more Metroid videos here on JKP Rising. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.